Welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Podcast, hosted by CRM technology and sales process expert Christopher Smith, talking with sales leaders that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. Listen to find out how the best of the best achieve success with their team and CRM technology. And remember, unless you are the lead dog, the view never changes.
Welcome to Sales Lead Dog. Today on this episode of Sales Lead Dog, I have joining me Parker Bentham, Chief Revenue Officer of Brondell. Welcome to Sales Lead Dog, Parker.
All right. Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit about your role as CRO in Brondell.
Yeah, so the Chief Revenue Officer, like you said, at Brondell. And Brondell is the bathe, breathe, drink, flush company. We handle all of your essentials. So we create happier people, healthier planet. So it's better for everybody. We started out as a better bathroom company. So we got started in electronic bidet toilet seats, bringing those to the North American market. That's what we're still most known for today. But since then, we've added different categories. We added water filtration, air purification, and shower filtration. And most notably here recently with the acquisition of Nebbia, we're introducing water savings shower head technology that we're really excited about.
That's a fairly crowded space, isn't it? So you have to be fairly brave as an entrepreneur to go say, hey, you know what? We're going to go into this market. What's that been like?
Yeah, there's a duality, especially for shower heads. There's a duality too. It is a bit of a crowded space. It's also a bit of an old boys club. And so we believe the duality of that is, good old boys club, kind of a big moat, but also if you come with something fresh and new and exciting, you can really carve some space for yourself. And we do have, patented new technology that just doesn't exist other than with us in the world today. So we're excited about that. Being able to save water in that showering without compromising on experience. So people essentially experiencing saving water without it seeming like they're even doing it. We believe it's the future of showering.
Oh, yeah. I'm in Colorado and water conservation is huge. As it is, I think, in a lot of parts of our country and the world.
Yeah.
So that there's definitely, I think, I personally like it when people have the guts to say, hey, this is a pretty well established, like you said, there's a big moat around this market. I'd love, let's go after that.
The world deserves something better.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're trying to deliver.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So did you want to be a salesperson when you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do with your life?
I don't know if maybe some salespeople are like, yes, this is what I always wanted to do. I personally never wanted to be a salesperson. And I joke that at Brondell, we've built a sales function, a department of salespeople who hate salespeople. So we're bringing a different experience through the sales process. But I do remember even my mom saying at a very young age, she did think that I would probably be a super salesperson as a young kid, bouncing around little parties and stuff like that. But so I guess it's in my DNA, but I didn't necessarily want to go this direction. I found myself in it.
Yeah. So you did start out your career in sales. What led that transition into sales?
Yeah, so I do have a circumnavigating kind of a career. I very early, I think like a lot of people, I was able to get some jobs. They were sales positions. I found out that those entry-level sales positions were pretty terrible for me personally. Right. I didn't have a great experience, although I will say, I do still draw on some of those experiences to inform, how I manage and develop people today so that they don't replicate some of those terrible experiences that I had when I was coming in. So I actually left sales and went to the buy side of things. And I was actually a construction purchaser for a while. I parlayed that into being a project manager for a private equity company. And we were buying distressed real estate at the time. And then real estate imploded. So I navigated my way, from that over to consulting. And so I was in a boutique consulting company. We moved IT contractors around the world, and I was responsible for the global business. So everything outside of the United States. And that was really interesting, bringing some of that buy side and project management experience to that, consultative, which then ended up being very much, a lot of people maybe not think of consulting as sales, but it very much is sales. You're selling your concepts, philosophies, strategies. And so I really believe all of that came together for my role here at Brondell, where I took that being on the buy side of the table so that when I'm selling, I can understand that side. Project management and seeing, product development and being part of that whole process and delivering it to the market, and then bringing my, my sales experience and some of that strategy and what I learned even in consulting and kind of layering that in there. So I may have a little bit different of an approach or perspective than maybe the typical person as a result.
You've been at Brondell for quite a while, which I think is pretty unusual. Usually CROs, they're not typically at a firm as long as you've been at Brondell. Tell me about that growth in your various roles towards this, what drove that progression to CRO?
Yeah, so my experience at Brondell, I've definitely grown with the company and helped the company to grow. And so that's definitely been a symbiotic relationship. When I started with the company, it was actually only 5 employees. And one of the reasons I took the leap from consulting over to this kind of small, quote unquote, startup, it was kind of a re-startup because it had had some growth and then it had sort of fallen on some challenging times. And then I was brought in to build the sales and help build the company back up. And it was really because of the people who were involved in the company that really allowed me the confidence to make that leap. And so the gentleman who runs the business on the day-to-day, who is still the president today and has been with the company for, I believe, 16 or 18 years. So he's been with the company a while as well. Steve Shear, he was actually the 4th employee at Craigslist. So he actually worked with Craig in Craig's apartment when Craigslist was just San Francisco. And Steve was the operations guy that helped scale Craigslist to a number of the markets that they're in today. And then the founder of Brondell, Dave Samuel, is an internet entrepreneur. He started spinner.com, which was one of the few people streaming music back in the day of Napster. Yep. But he monetized his business, so he was able to sell his business where Napster got crushed by the government. And so Dave runs a VC, Freestyle Capital now today. And so a very unique kind of group of people. Because of Dave's past experiences, he's friendly with Mark Cuban. So Mark Cuban is an investor advisor with the company as well. And I thought, man, I really want to work with these people, right? I don't know about bidet seats so much. Which, hey, I trusted that these people had a proven track record of identifying the future and pulling it into today. And that has been my experience with Brondell. So I do believe that the people that are involved with the company have enabled me to stay for the long run. And so, we're many multiples of those 5 people than we were, 12, 13 years ago. And just that growth, first getting into our first retailer, and then the second and third and fourth. And now today we're in store with Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart. We've been in and out with Costco as, they turn their inventory. And we expanded into Canada. So there's been just a lot of growth, which has provided a long runway and has kept me highly engaged and very excited. And today, 12, 13 years later, I'm still just as excited about our runway and our growth opportunities forward as I have been looking back in the past over the last decade or so.
Yeah. Do you have a philosophy or theme, so to speak, in terms of how you like to lead in your role as CRO?
Yeah, most definitely. And we've built the sales function at Brondell very differently than a lot of organizations. And one of the key tenets, that I lead with is this idea of, shoulder to shoulder. We have open collaboration instead of open competition. What I had found out in my past, and what I didn't especially appreciate, was pitting salespeople against each other, and that is one way to get people to fight, up and get good performance out of them. But I played soccer, played collegiate, played one semi-pro year, and thought I'm not quite good enough. So, but soccer really fosters this idea of like this team, mentality. And so I sought to build the sales organization within Brondell with that same mentality of coming shoulder to shoulder instead of facing off against one another. So if we have a problem, we're facing a challenge, we don't put the challenge between us and then face off, because inevitably you lose sight of what the problem is, and then the person becomes the issue. But instead, it's about repositioning yourself shoulder to shoulder. You're working together with each other, and you're tackling problems. And the thing that is out in front that you're working on is the issue, is the challenge. It's never the person, because we're together. So whether that's my, junior account manager, my vice president of sales, or my strategic account manager, doesn't matter. We come shoulder to shoulder and we work together. I want idea meritocracy. I want people to come with deeply held convictions, but hold their ideas loosely. And so then that way we can all fight for the best ideas to win, and not just my idea, or I'm fighting against somebody for their idea. But again, if we all come shoulder to shoulder, we know we're all working for the greater good of the organization, and we can keep that idea meritocracy true and equal. So
that's awesome. How do you manage accountability when you're shoulder to shoulder?
So that's a great question, because you could say, well, we all did this, and so therefore it's all of our fault. No one's accountable. Who cares?
Right.
But there is some of it that the buck stops with me. But I would also say that how we have structured our sales organization is there's key people that are responsible for key pieces of the business. We have a strategic account manager who owns marketplace business. We have a vice president of sales who owns the retail business. Then we have a senior commercial manager who owns that commercial side of the business. And so although we all definitely work shoulder to shoulder and we cross-pollinate, right? And so something that the commercial guy is working on will inform something that the Amazon guy is working on, and back and forth and all together. But at the end of the day, it's the people who own their respective business unit that will ultimately be held accountable for the performance of that business unit. But we openly collaborate to come up with those things. But I do empower each one of those business unit owners to have the final alignment on decision making.
Right. One of my pet peeves is as a leader, when somebody comes to me with a problem, they just dump it on my desk. In this environment, when there's an issue like that, how is that, how do people ask, or how do they, start that process of collaboration?
That's a good question. Yeah. Don't come to me with your problems.
Right. Yeah. Well, unless you have a solution that goes with it, like, here's the problem, and here's what I'm thinking, how we can solve it. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And like so many people, and I remember when we first started building, and it was just me and a couple of guys, right? And we were out there hustling. And a lot of times I was finding, because I had been here, and I started the restart of the sales organization, they would just come to me and say, hey, I've got this problem. Like, what do I do? And I remember I had to just like harp on that idea of like, please, you do need to bring me your challenges and your issues. So open door, absolutely 100%. But I want you to, before you just come right away directly to me, I want you to take a beat. I want you to think about this, have some creative, critical time with it, sit with it, and then come to me. I understand that sometimes after doing that, you might not have a suggestion, you might not have a potential solution, and that's okay. But you can tell me what you've thought through and that you did not come up with anything, and then come to me. It's just important to take that moment, take that beat, give it some thought, and then come. But it's definitely everybody has a direct line to me, whether they're the junior person in the department or whether they're the most senior person in the department, because I believe in that creative collaboration.
Right. How do you manage egos in that environment? Because I imagine, especially if someone's new to that environment, I imagine that's a big adjustment for some people.
So not everyone is a fit within this type of a culture, and that is 100% true. And so if you have, that kind of killer mentality, and that works really great in some sales organizations, and there are high performers that are that way. You may end up just being highly frustrated within our organization, the way we run it that way. But I do believe in the end that we do get better performance and more capacity out of people working in that collaborative nature. And so our culture, again, it's not for everybody, but we do believe that it's better for everyone who it is good for.
Oh, I believe, to me, I'm sitting here thinking about this as you're talking, and part of being a team is, that you've got your good days, your bad days, but when you're having those bad days, there's other people in the team that have your back, that you can rely on to help you, come out of whatever that issue is and keep moving forward. But if you're pure solo, hunter killer, and you're out there on your own, no one else is around, that's a lot lonelier place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you have a team of those people, right? Yeah. Then not only, because so much of sales, I do think in terms of sales is you have to go out there. You are the hunter, no matter what, even in our team mentality. You still go out and then you come back to the safety of the village, right? Yeah. But if you go out, you're out there, you got to fight so hard. It's not easy to convince somebody to spend money with something that you're trying to get them, they may not have wanted to begin with, right? I mean, that's essentially what sales is. Hopefully they do want it, but it's tough, right? And then you come back. But if you have a team of people that are killers like that, then you go out there and you're fighting, and then you come back and you have to fight and defend, right? And so, I want to create that. It sounds kind of cliche, but it is. I want to create a more of a family kind of safe space that energizes us, recharges us, that we can go back out there kind of into the sales world, and we can expend all of our energy out there fighting to get sales to come back and then find that safety again.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's the hardest part about your role of CRO?
I would say seeing the future.
You don't have a crystal ball?
I know. Nobody has a clear crystal ball.
Got lost in the mail or something? Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Apple to come out with that product, right? So that's the most difficult thing, is to, project out, understand that, and not just see what could be, but then develop that path from where we are today to where we need to go tomorrow. It's almost easier to find the pivoting along the way than it is to write the plan originally. Right. So I definitely feel like that is the biggest challenge that I face.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think everyone in your role has that same issue, but not many will admit it, because that is the toughest part of being the leader. Is someone's got to create that vision for the future, where we're going, and put that stake in the ground. And some people, I think a lot of people just throw mud at the wall and like, well, let's do this. And, we'll go in this direction. And boy, I hope it works.
Yeah. Hope is not a strategy.
No, hope is not a strategy. Yeah. So how do you marry that that in that role of CRO of, I have to create that vision, but what's your philosophy, or how do you do that where it's not just a leap of faith and 100% hope? What's your process for working through that struggle?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there is a creative element to it, but then there's also the administrative element to it. First, I've always been kind of a creative person. And so for me to imagine and kind of daydream, if you will, that's never been a problem for me. So coming up with certain scenarios of what could be, that's not maybe the difficult part. I think coming up with the nuts and bolts, the brick by brick of how to build something to that. That is the challenge, right? That's where the value gets added by a CRO or any leader for that matter, because people can daydream. There's lots of daydreamers out there that may not be adding value. And so really how I go about it is I take apart the business and I look at all of the elements, and then I try to put those things back together. And always, no matter what, you have what your vision is. And when you put those building blocks back together, there's a delta between where you can see to and where you need to get to. And at the end of the day, that delta needs to be realistically bridged. Otherwise, you're not working in the realm of reality. Yeah. And so that is the difficult part. Is what that bridge is. The other thing I would say is here's a little learn from my mistakes. I'll here's see underneath the table a little bit behind the door. There's been times where I've done exactly what I just told you. Lay it out, kind of here's the map of that. Okay, well, here's the path. It's still a realistic delta, but what I failed to realize is I have to nail that path of all of those bricks that I built. I have to hit it just perfect in order to get to where the delta is realistically achievable. And I've learned over time that you need to have multiple paths in order to achieve that kind of brick by brick building part, right, so that you can get to that achievable delta, because you still might achieve the delta, but if you haven't made the path just right, you'll end up coming up short. So multiple paths to achieving what and then making sure that you're kind of gut checking and double checking that your delta is achievable and realistic.
Now that's fascinating. That I think a lot of people fall into that trap of like, okay, I figured it out. Here's our path. But there's always so much risk and there's so much unknown in any market. It doesn't matter what you're trying to sell. That one thing goes wrong, then you're in pivot mode, mm-hmm, trying to find those alternate paths. Right? I mean, that's your only option.
Yeah, there's variability. And then there's stretch. And most people diminish variability and they focus on, well, what's my stretch goal?
Right.
But if you're not achieving and hitting and taking into account the variability in the plan, you can be to the downside and you'll never realistically achieve the stretch.
Yeah. What about building out your team and getting your team aligned with this vision that you're creating? Do you have any significant issues in creating that alignment towards your vision?
Yeah, again, I believe we have a competitive advantage the way we built our sales organization and having that collaborative culture, because I involve everybody within the process. And so we don't operate by, I come down from on high with the decree and this is what we're going to do. And what's the context of this thing? I'm engaging in conversations with people along the way. I'm getting their feedback, their insight, because they're going to know as well as I know the businesses, and I've run each one of these business units myself. They know where we're at better than I ever will because they're 100% focused on that. So I want their value. I want their voice. And so I solicit that in the planning process. And so once we have our goals, once we have our vision, once we have our future destinations, it's never a surprise to anybody because they've been coming along the way in that development journey.
So you're not just shoulder to shoulder solving problems. You're shoulder to shoulder in creating that vision and developing that path forward and identifying the alternate paths as well.
Yeah, I look at everybody within our sales organization as business partners. And something that I do try to drive home is, we're not out here trying to slap deals together. We're not trying to just get some sales. We're trying to build a scalable business here. And so I want each one of my salespeople to think as a business partner. I want them to think in terms of operating profit, not just gross sales or even gross margin, right? And that again creates a very different kind of perspective and somebody who's approaching the business in a different manner. And I think that's why we've been able to self-sustain our own growth. To date, we've raised very little capital. And I think it's because we have a whole bunch of little business owners out there running around thinking about, the business as if it was their own.
Do you have problems identifying people to be part of your sales team that maybe just like, hey, what you're talking about, that just isn't for me? Or do you get people that are just chomping at the bit to join your team?
I think when people hear about what we're doing, it's either I don't want any of that or wow, that sounds really refreshing. So I think it's fairly polarizing, and sadly, but true, our compensation packages are going to be really what turn someone on or turn someone off. And so we compensate in a very different manner than what a salesperson is typically used to, right? Because in how you compensate somebody, you could say you have as collaborative team as you can say, and everyone works together and communicates and everything, but I'm solely, commissioned on what I go out and kill and bring back. You're going to have people that are going to fight. You're not going to have different accounts that defer to one another because they understand the greater good here is what we're doing. And so we compensate in a different way. And so that foundation is solid. And it's not for everybody.
Right.
But that is a good governor, a good filter, right?
Because
as soon as someone comes in, yeah.
I'd love having that governor, that filter, that one thing that, hey, this is a little bit off, maybe you're not used to, because to me, it really makes sure like, hey, we have to make sure you're totally aligned with what we're doing here. And so if you have something like that acts as that switch or that filter where it's a yes, no type thing, either you fit or you don't. It's like Zappos, where it's like, hey, we're going to take you through the training and then we're going to offer you a chunk of money to leave.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like,
and it starts at the top. It starts at the top down. So I'm not putting that on my sales team and then treating myself differently. And our president is compensated much in the same way that the rest of the organization is as well. Yeah. So we're not treating people differently. We're leading by example.
Yeah, that's awesome. So talking about leading example, that's one of my favorite topics when it comes to being a leader, to meet the leaders out front. How do you establish yourself in your role as that person out front?
Again, I take responsibility. The buck does stop with me. I also don't manage or lead by consensus. I lead by alignment, and Brondell as a whole has a great culture of alignment. And what the different, alignment is a nuance that allows for dissenting voices, but at the end of the day, we got to move forward. We got to make a decision. And so even if there is conflict within my team, I don't have a problem stepping up and making those clear decisions and providing clear direction. And so it's not, it could be a trap in that shoulder to shoulder mentality of we're all buddies and we're all in this together and I want everyone to like me. But sometimes I have to make those decisions that aren't super popular. I've taken into consideration everyone's voices. We have collaborated, and it may fall, contrary to the way you want, but we got to go in this direction because it's, for the greater good. And it's just about, bringing people along. I was told very early in my leadership development, I did a leadership internship for a couple of years. And I remember one of the greatest lessons I learned, it was from quite a large organization. And the leader in that organization said, hey, we turn this ship so that nobody falls off. Because if you think of like a big, cruise ship, and if that thing turns super fast, the velocity of that turn, a lot of people will go overboard. But what I'm trying to accomplish here is people in it for the long haul. And so if we make turns and pivots and changes, I want to slowly do that so that I bring everybody with me, because there's a lot of value in longevity.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And it's fortunate you just don't see that too much anymore. What about failure? Failure is such a common thread in sales. It's like just, the yin and yang of sales. How do you leverage failure as a learning opportunity within your organization?
Yeah, so failures come in small ways and in large ways. And so, I always, elicit feedback. So small failures would be, in a sales meeting and getting feedback from, the salesperson that was even with me as the CRO. I'm asking like, hey, what did I do good in that meeting? What did I do poorly in that meeting? Large failures, it's about the team getting, together and, looking at, where did we go wrong here? Because ultimately you can look at the end result and you can say, wow, we screwed up, we did something wrong. But if you can pinpoint where in the process things started to go wrong, let's get back to that point, right? Because then you can actually fix it, and you're not treating an ailment, you're actually treating the actual sickness or the actual problem. So I mean, it's about, making sure that you're open and honest with each other. Again, I think that, idea meritocracy, being able to show your idea's weakness is actually a strength in the person to be able to do that, have the confidence to do that. And so even when you're looking back at those failures, being honest enough, even as a leader, to say, this is where I see we failed, or where I failed as a leader. What do you all, my team, think as well? And facilitate that feedback. That's how you could actually extract as much value out of that failure as possible. If you just try to shine it up, you've lost any benefit that you ever could have gotten out of that.
Yeah, I agree. CRM, do you love it or do you hate it?
Loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
As a CRO, I should say that I love it, but I have to be honest and I have to say I hate it.
Yeah. What do you hate about CRM? That's actually my favorite answer. So
yeah,
gives us more to talk about.
Yeah. The thing I dislike most about it is the idea, I put information in and it just poof, it's gone forever. And I think CRM's come a long way with a lot of automation tools that can bring things back up to the surface that may have been forgotten. But yeah, that is my biggest bone to pick, and where I see a lot of excuses from salespeople. Well, I put it in the system, I forgot, kind of a thing.
Yeah. What's your why for your CRM? So if I'm a salesperson, I come to you, I'm like, why are we even using this? What's your why?
The why would be opposite to why I dislike it. And it is about those automation tools, so that your short memory, you don't have to rely on that. And you can actually scale your memory by putting it in the machine and have it, help you to reach out to people. The biggest value that I see in CRM is extensive note taking, right? But that has to be good data in, good data out kind of a thing. Right. But I see that's one of the largest leverage points, is something for an automated, memory, and then having that crystal clear ability to have notes in there, so that you can pick something up at a moment's notice. Even if somebody calls you, you can look someone up super quick, have right where you left off the last conversation, and that person feels valued on the other end of the line. Because at the end of the day, it's, sales is people to people, and that's what matters.
Yeah. How does CRM support your sales process at Brondell?
I think we probably could do a much better job of having it support our process. Right now, it's basically a central repository of information. It's mainly a database, and I think we could probably use it in a much more effective way.
Yeah, a lot of companies I talk with, obviously that's my world, struggle with that. Do you have a thought as to why CRM, so many CRMs aren't really aligned with the sales process of the companies that are using them?
We need somebody who is equally as good at sales as at technology to be able to be the person who to make the perfect CRM. But I do have hope actually for the future of AI being embedded into CRM to make them to be able to anticipate, because I think that's part of the problem. I mean, salespeople, they're busy, right?
Yeah.
And like I just said, it's a people-to-people business, and so for a salesperson to stop and have to input or do something, I think that anticipatory algorithmic something goodness in there, I think could be the future, where it turns it from input output database kind of a situation to maybe more of that kind of living not just automation but anticipation.
Right. It's such a common theme that, I mean, you said it, like for a salesperson to stop. No, they shouldn't have to stop to interact with any piece of technology, because it's like, then now I've got this anchor that's slowing me down. And it should be something that's enabling them, moving them forward, empowering them to do more, not this anchor I'm dragging behind you. Well, we are at our time here, Parker, on Sales Lead Dog. I really appreciate you coming on. If people listening to this episode want to reach out and connect with you, maybe learn more about Brondell or just connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn's probably the best place. Parker Bentham, search me up. You'll find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. We're going to have Parker's information, his LinkedIn profile, etc., in our show notes. So be sure to check that out. You can get that at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog, where you will find not only this episode, but all our episodes of Sales Lead Dog. So be sure to check that out. Parker, thank you so much for coming on Sales Lead Dog. And I just want to welcome you to the Sales Lead Dog Pack.
Awesome. I appreciate it. It's been great having this chat, and thanks for inviting me onto the show.
You bet.
As we end this discussion on Sales Lead Dog, be sure to subscribe to catch all our episodes. On social media, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube, and you can also find our episodes on our website at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog. Sales Lead Dog is supported by Impeller CRM, delivering objectively better CRM for business, guaranteed.